What's up, everybody? I'm Yogi Chris, PhD, aka Pimpin' Yogi from IMC Base 1 here in San Jose. This is Enlightened Masculinity. And I have Everet Dale, IMC Everet Dale. He's from Canada, but he lives in actually Mexico right now, down there by the Yucatan Peninsula, somewhere in there. We won't tell you his exact location because he's undercover. But, he's an IMC student. He's come here for both the parties back in October. I think I've had him on the show at least once. And, but this is going to zoom in more to his expertise of the Hermetic Principles and the seven laws of alchemy, or who knows how many. A lot of people, they like to talk about the 7 chakra system of the body, but they don't realize that there's 6 chakra systems, 4 chakra systems, 26 chakra systems, 212 chakra systems. I personally follow a 10 chakra system, but so I don't know how many Hermetic Principles there are, but there's 7 commonly known that are named. And it's interesting, this number 7. So Everett's here. He's streaming, I believe, from Mexico right now. And so we're just going to talk about, like, he said the other day in class, and AZD noted, and if you don't know who AZD is, if you're just coming to the show, like on the recordings or whatever, first of all, follow, share, click the link and see everything about us. AZD, top of the planet player, world class. I live with him and, help to spread the good word about his exploits and what he can show guys, and everybody's coming up around him that is learning this stuff. So Everett's been watching remotely. He came in person also, but he's been watching remotely, and he's like, man, like every 10 minutes you're saying something about the Hermetic Principles, but not directly. You're not saying principle number 4 is polarity or whatever. You're just saying things that I'm going and writing a blog about it. So he has a blog, by the way, and we'll get to that, and we'll have that linked in the description actually for this. So without further ado, I just want to kind of hand it over to Everett. How's it going down in Mexico? And what can you tell us about this correlation you've seen in principles and AZD's teachings?
For sure. Well, first of all, it's awesome to be on here. And I'm really excited to talk about this because a couple of weeks ago, I listened to AZD, and it was one of the biggest revelations I've ever had as I was listening to him, because I just written this blog article about the 7 Hermetic Principles, and I'm hearing them kind of like infused in everything he's teaching us. There's always some level of the 7 Hermetic Principles, and I think why, as we listen to AZD lecture, we want to learn how to get better with women, but I think he's bringing us to a higher level of consciousness in all ways, and that's what the women are responding to as we become more attractive to women. It's not like we're learning some sneaky line to say to them. It's we're coming from a higher level of consciousness that AZD is teaching us, and part of that is his, he draws on his martial arts background and his Scientology. And a lot of where he's coming from, I guess, is his deep understanding of Hermeticism, alchemy, and stuff like this. And so, for those that don't know, there's something called the 7 principles of the 7 Hermetic Principles, or in the description of this show, the 7 alchemical principles, and they come from the teachings of Thoth, who was a god in ancient Egypt, known as Hermes in ancient Greece, later became combined into Hermes Trismegistus during the Hellenistic era, and the kind of the beginning, just after Christ, I believe. And so Thoth's teachings kind of got what survived of them got put into this system of philosophy called Hermeticism. And so the 7 Hermetic Principles are, let's see if I can do this: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, gender. Now I'm doing them out of order. Rhythm. Let me just look at my blog post.
Look at my blog post. I want to try. So mentality, I'm not going to do it in the right order. Mentality, vibration, polarity, gender, correspondence,
cause and effect,
and Polarity, gender, cause and effect,
Rhythm.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just hard to hold them all in my mind and just remember which ones I said. So
Yeah.
right
And
on.
so AZD will say things like, he'll talk about your vibe, you're rolling into the club, and then he shifts into another vibe, and I'm going, oh, that's a lot of vibration right there. Or the rhythm, everything flows in and out, everything has its tide, all things rise and fall. You see this all over the place in your interactions with, sometimes you chase too hard and the girl runs, and then you give her space and she comes back, and there's always a rhythm to all these interactions that we're having.
Totally. Like male and female behavior, like each behavior has a male and female quality, or each nameable thing has a male and female quality to it. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just the words you say, it's how you say it. And, and even the idea of shifting your vibe, that comes from a state of mind. So the mind is exerting control or power over vibe. Vibe is the phenomenon of how we're resonating with each other, or attracting, repelling, things like that. But impose mentality that, my whole state of being is completely within my mind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's, of course, that's the first law, the law of mentalism. Everything is a state of mind. And that's so AZD-esque, right?
Yeah,
always,
that's everything, like the brand.
Yeah. And
they try to hate on that. Like, it's all inner game. It's all mindset stuff. I need some practical, like, game or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, people, they don't last in the game not because the game is toxic or learning pickup is toxic, but because people are toxic. Men are toxic. If you put a sword in a 13-year-old's hand, they're going to cut themselves. So men are not mature enough to wield that. And, so they'll quickly spiral off to Pluto with their pickup or whatever, without, reining it in. Or they'll limit their power. They won't be able to lead a tribe. They'll have to do it in, like, kind of isolation, seclusion, hidden or whatever. And I can't speak for every sort of thing. I mean, every sort of situation there is, but I see this as the path to, it's not about the women. Like, it is about the women, but that's like saying everything is about the women. Everything we do as a man in life is about the women. So how useful is it to say, well, this one particular thing is about women? Like, if it is, then you're probably misguided. I don't want to teach right now, but, like, it's probably getting too invested in, like, the activity, the outcome related to women, and you're going to lose yourself as a man in that and be disappointed ultimately. Even if you get the girl, you ultimately be disappointed because you left yourself behind, and the girl will reject you at some point, and then you have nothing to stand on. So, this being the path of, like, kind of being under the microscope, being in the public eye, being very open and visible and transparent, while at the same time hiding levels of information, because people can misunderstand or misquote deeper level teachings. It just throws things amok. Like, that, you got to learn algebra before you learn calculus. You learn some great principle in calculus or whatever, but you just don't know how to, like, build up to that, and you'll misuse it at some point. You won't understand. And then you'll blame the teacher and the teachings, and it'll get a bad rap and bad feedback or whatever. Ultimately, the teacher wants the students to succeed. So trust in that they're teaching in some way that, like, that's where longevity in this thing is. And when you look at the pickup community, very few longevity. And we could even talk about that because we've trained under different people. But anyway.
Yeah. Gosh, what was I going to say? So yeah, with the law of mentalism, a lot of what I get from AZD is the beliefs, like the whole inner construct of all my assumptions and beliefs, and about the world, and about women, and about how I think I fit into society. And because if we have the right beliefs, then the right state of mind, right, then that's so much of the rest comes easily, to learn how to dress cool, to learn how to you know, the flavor, the style is just kind of the icing on the cake if you have the right kind of, you know, inner beliefs. So that was, you know, I think that understanding the 7 Hermetic Principles is absolutely essential to getting AZD at a deeper level.
Really?
And absolutely, because he's really talking about them constantly. Some of them more so than others, maybe like the principle of vibration, the principle of mentalism, but you know, take polarity, like everything has its opposites, but opposites are identical in nature and different in degree. So I guess like maybe if a very strong emotion in a relationship, a woman could become very, very angry or upset, and then that could, but that's a strong feeling. And so essentially that's the same as you know, feeling very passionately into you. It's just a difference of, it's the same intensity, you know. If she's so maybe she wants to have sex with you so badly in that moment, she's so attracted to you, or if she's so upset with you, in both situations she's feeling that intensity. So really it's just a polarity of, you know what I'm saying, it's just a difference of degree.
Yeah, totally. It's like almost the mentality is directing whether the energy is positive or negative. And you know, that love that can turn to hate or resentment, or that resentment that could turn to infatuation, if like the right thing is there to satisfy what one is seeking, or, you know, their ego basically. And you know, it's just amazing how the push or pull of the energy just flips in an instant when it does. And, or sometimes it does, but it's, you know, from his experience and noticing of being in multiple relationships for many years. So there's lots of pushes and pulls going on there, sometimes all in the same direction. And then it's like, fuck. And so the observation, and then of course, practicing meditation and other spiritual practices along the way. So there's opportunity to reflect on what's going on in one's life. So recognizing patterns. And so then, of course, when one has read the Kabbalion or, you know, whatever, these esoteric occult studies.
That's probably the best place to learn the 7 Hermetic Principles is the Kabbalion, actually.
Yeah, you know, I haven't read it. I've only listened to AZD. He handed me the book once, and there's a version right there. I read like the first 10 pages or 5 pages. I don't know. And,
so I had listened to it in audio in the past.
Yeah.
And I find I don't really learn very well from audio.
Oh.
And then when I was doing this blog article the other day, I started reading it and then also writing about it. And then that's when my understanding of them, like I really actually started to like know it. Because when I listen to things, I don't know, I zone out, or I guess it uses a different part of the brain or whatever. But the Kabbalion, I would like to read the full book in its entirety, because when I was doing the article, I was kind of scanning it and stuff like that. But that was written in, I think, 1908 by the author is the 3 Initiates, but supposedly it was actually this guy who was like a congressman and a businessman and a doctor or something, and he wrote like 100 books.
Wow.
And I think people in that era were the smartest people, some of the smartest people ever. Like 1880 to 1920, I think men were much more, they were doing a lot of stuff. And so he wrote that book based on the writings that had been passed down from thousands of years ago. Supposedly a lot of those teachings got burned in the burning of the Library of Alexandria by Julius Caesar.
Yeah, that's how the story goes. I'll bet they just kept them and burned a bunch of tax documents. They probably just burned a bunch of tax documents and just said everything burned down, and probably just kept it all and put it in the Vatican.
Probably if they knew what it was.
If they knew what it was, I'm sure they did. I'm sure, because they were blue bloods, they were aliens, so they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, kind of like when Bush Senior went into the Museum of Baghdad.
Man, there's so much in that. Like, I am baffled by like giant stones, these monoliths, and around the fucking planet that have been carved, or I mean the pyramids, of course, and just so many of these things. And obviously the history that they told us is not the history that it is. There's this one YouTube channel called Spirit Science, and they have this great video of several great videos. And it's interesting, you know. I've also watched a guy on Gaia named Matteo De Stefano, and very interesting channelings. I don't agree, because he talks about the reptilians and shapeshifters being friends, and I don't see that right now. And I also, based on his story and his kind of collaboration with the Vatican to do some energetic shift on the fucking planet, a planetary energetic shift, I'm like, fuck that guy. He's working with the Vatican to like, and they allowed that, and like, what, like, this is bullshit. Like, there's something funny going on here. I don't like this endorsement. But so I think they're giving us like 80 or 90% of the truth, and then misguiding us at the end, which would be very easy to just, then you would never find the location. And
yeah, they're very clever, and they put out a lot of controlled opposition type figures to mislead us even further, and obfuscate the truth.
So what I like about AZD is his emphasis on proof and showing it. And yeah, he uses the multiple relationships to hide multiple highly desirable women in a city where it's not a party city. It's not like he's in fucking Kiev or Las Vegas or even New York City or Tokyo, where there's like lots and lots of people. It's San Jose, Silicon Valley. It's Man Jose, you know? Really? And
like, honestly, when I see what's going on in San Jose, and what AZD does is really incredible. How seductive he is. And, you know, 10 girls is really, really incredible and stuff. But man, if there's places you can go in the world where we could all have 10 girls, like, you know, I'm all about Colombia.
It's just,
for some context, San Jose is terrible.
It's just terrible. And it's the quality, because a lot of people, the haters, people that don't have good game, they like to hate on American women. And so there's undesirable qualities. There's undesirable qualities in women from everywhere. I can find, it's easy to find. The grace and the beauty and the ability to hold her man's power, and, you know, all the customs of American whatever. Like, I like American women, but the game is definitely different. You know, a dollar goes differently in other countries, but yet the genetics aren't that different. So you'll find beautiful women there. But then, you know, what's their level of education and sophistication? Well, maybe that's not important to you. Well, it is if, like, I don't know if it is, if it isn't. And then, of course, stabilizing that, meaning she's got to handle her whole family line, everybody that has a hate on her being with a man with multiple women, given that he's not a sultan. They won't have a problem if it's a sultan. But if it's just, you know, some white guy like Everet or Yogi Chris, then it's like, nah. And, you know, so all of that, but the proof and being as close to it, because I knew this before I moved in with him, because I had done enough trainings to come around. I had gotten a flavor for how tight his schedule was. But obviously, the closer I came to moving here and eventually moving here, I saw how tight his schedule was. Like, you know, they used to make fun of players, like you'd have a Tuesday girl, a Wednesday girl, a Thursday girl. But the problem with that is that those guys were lying to Tuesday girl. Tuesday girl didn't know there was a Wednesday girl, didn't know there was a Thursday girl. And it's not like that here. It's more overlapping schedules. Sometimes girls come in pairs or whatever, like his friend, like he's not sexual with multiple, whatever. And that's how I do it too. And, you know, but that level of engagement continuously, just with girl after girl, and they're not the same. It's not the same kind of interaction. And so his mind, and for years, his mind has been in conversation, noticing these patterns of principles, because he's meditating, whatever, and he's read. And, you know, the Hermetic Principles, seeing how it applies with emotions, with language, moving energy, applying all the Scientology and the mathematics of language like he had it. And so he's starting to decode like patterns and whatever after he's engaged with women after women for years and then teaching about it. So now there's this feedback loop where now I'm analyzing what I've done. When I'm doing it, I'm not analyzing it, but so, and then students come. And so you see the reflections of your teachings in that, and there's all this feedback. And so it's evolved over a decade and a half now, to where, this reptilian agenda, the history of the planet, it is locked, supposedly it is locked in the layers of the mind, even as far as like subconscious and genetic, memory. And the language has really masked over our perception of truth while giving us a great technology to, make airplanes and everything. It also has a lot of homophones that like sound like other words and confuse the subconscious. It has all kinds of drawbacks to language. And so we're getting better and better. But so how AZD has broken down the history of the planet and its relevance to the mating agenda, to what he does, like not just as an aside, like as a documentary on the, human history or whatever, but as a thing that's related to seducing the women and holding power, very, man, I love human history, man. As we start talking about it and ancient scrolls and what was known when there was less electromagnetic waves everywhere. And, we hadn't eaten so many like grains and, mixed in petroleum fertilizer with our foods. And that it goes up, bioaccumulates up the food chain. So you're eating, fish that has mercury in it. And it's just like, what has that done to our pineal gland? And like what we're seeing is very interesting.
That's why I feel like there was that era, kind of 1880 to 1920 or
yeah,
exactly. Those guys, those men were on a whole other level. Or my grandfather, for instance, he's younger than that. He was born in the 30s, and he was an academic during his career. And a few years ago, we were having a phone conversation. He was getting a little bit hard on himself for not being quite as sharp as he used to be. I mean, he's 91 years old now. And he goes, back when I was young, somebody would tell me a phone number in the morning that I had to call in the evening, and I wouldn't even bother writing it down. I just knew I could remember it. Like, there's no way I'm going to remember it. I'm not going to trust myself to. I might do it by a fluke, but I'm not going to trust myself to remember a phone number all day. That's crazy in this day and age with, our minds are just inundated with all this, like you're saying, the radiation and
and a lot of data. We have a lot of data about a lot of things that they didn't have or need back then. So, there's just less words floating around in the head. The dictionary now, the English dictionary is bigger than it was back then. More words in use, more words got to be memorized. That's why the brain grew so big, but I mean, that's what they say. They say that because this is evolutionary psychology, that the tools that humans are known to invent, whatever, in the fucking fake human history that they tell us, came much after our skull got bigger. So our brain got bigger way before tools. So the hypothesis is that it's the language communicating back and forth that helped man survive. And the brain was actually, it grew to fill the dictionary, to remember these words and things. And, the primary stimulus behind that was the mating, was, how to communicate to, lead and get mates.
Wow. And we can kind of tie back into the topic of the day, because that makes me think of the Egyptian god Thoth, who was the god of writing.
Right. Which is why I actually think it might be, when I see it, because it's written THOTH. And sometimes in Sanskrit, in English, when you write an English version of Sanskrit, you'll have a T after the H, or an H after the T. But it's not with a sound, it's with a T. It's like you emphasize the aspiration after the T. So, but it's not always that way. It depends. So I've often thought that the THOTH would be pronounced thot. 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 Almost like a thought.
That sounds more Egyptian to me. Thot. Yeah.
I don't know though. Tot or Toth or Thoth.
I mean, when you're talking about thousands of years.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I heard a theory that maybe maybe
No.
earlier in history, not even that long ago. Did somebody say something? I've got a.
That's all right. Just ignore them. You guys can raise a hand if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they don't raise a hand, they just assume that it's
Okay.
accident. I muted them.
I heard I forget her name. This woman, she's got a pretty big following. Anyway, she has this theory that maybe at earlier times in history, people were only seeing in primary colors.
Yeah.
And if they were, how would we know that?
Yeah, right. Because the
Okay.
language is Steven Pinker has a book on like the evolution of language. And, you know, he was talking about, you know, some of these these tribes that were discovered like in the 1900s, that like some of the latest tribes that had some of the last tribes on the planet that had not had contact with outside humans. And so being able to observe like where their language was. And he was talking about languages that just had two colors. I think it was like dark and light. And then the third color that always emerges is red. Red is the first color that emerges outside of black and light. And then he goes into the others, and just like, it was just very interesting that like which colors popped out to the mind and how the mind couldn't see it until there was like a concept for it or something.
Yeah. And whatever the details of the differences in what people were experiencing, I mean, we're talking what, like maybe 5,000 years ago for some of these, like, we don't know what it was like, but guaranteed it was completely different. And so these, you know, these people were worshiping gods and they had temples to their gods. And
because they say that like an asteroid broke apart or a comet broke apart in the atmosphere, and a bunch of fragments collided over the northern ice cap and flash melted all the ice. And that's where the Great Flood happened. And so that killed out Atlantis like 12,000 years ago. So a bunch of the city dwellers from Atlantean cities, they moved into the countryside, but they didn't know how to survive in the country. Kind of like if we lost our electricity, we wouldn't know how to live off the land. And so most of them died, but a few of them taught their sciences, tried to teach their sciences to the savages that lived in the fucking forest and whatever. And a few thousand years later, there were still some bloodlines left from those. There was some of the knowledge, but it had become warped. There was this, you know, thing going on. Language had been lost, but some of it had been recovered, but it had been warped also. There's interesting theories about the Tower of Babel, you know, where there was like a single language and then it split apart, and how much alien interference was in that. And like, Jesus. Mind blowing. And I was talking about the Spirit Science YouTube channel because they had a great video about Thoth and him being like a fifth dimensional being, and how he created this like grid over the planet. And there's supposed to be some spaceship that's like, these are from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth from, you know, ancient Egypt, and how there's supposed to be this 1 molecule or 3 molecule thick spaceship that's like a big disc that's like 200 meters below the fucking Great Pyramids or somewhere like right there. And so it's a 4th dimensional spaceship. So it kind of phase shifts through the land. It's not just, you know, so it goes up and like every so often there's like some alien attacks. And so the 4th dimension, like this is all in the Emerald Tablets or whatever. And wait, this is 3,000 years old and they're talking about this. It must be true. I don't know.
Who knows? But I'm sure the truth is way stranger than we could ever imagine.
They say in the Spirit Science documentary, he says that there's some lady from Peru that attained Christ consciousness in like 1988 or 1992 or something. And she went and operated this spaceship and went up and deflected a bunch, like an alien attack or something with it, because it's powered by love or some shit.
That might have had something to do with the Greys from Dracos, and they all descend from the fall of what's his face, the Prince of Darkness, the fall of Lucifer. And then you get these dark forces like the commonly known Greys, and because
Greys.
So Spirit Science, I can't deal with the voice, so I never got into it.
Yeah, that guy's a dork.
But
like
he gets
a pitch dork, and he's kind of like,
he gets his stuff from Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Yeah, exactly.
Who apparently during the, and I'm sure you know this, but for anybody else who maybe hasn't heard this, he moved to British Columbia, Canada, during the Vietnam War to avoid being drafted, and was living in a cabin in the woods, meditating, and then Thoth starts appearing in his Drunvalo Melchizedek, essential reading. So I'm responding to somebody's question here. I'm writing it. And first some angels, these two angels start appearing to him and start teaching him all this cool stuff about reality. No, and then later Thoth starts appearing and starts teaching him about sacred geometry and stuff like that. And Thoth wanted to know a meditation technique that the angels had taught Drunvalo. And so Drunvalo taught him this and that allowed him it gave him a new way of maintaining his immortality, because he's immortal, but he needed to go and rejuvenate himself. I think he might have had to go down into the halls of Amenti under the pyramid, and there's some kind of like a glowing floral thing or something or I forget the details, but then using this new meditation technique, he didn't have to go through that tedious process to.
Oh, so he can rejuvenate easier and become immortal faster, so he can, play around on the surface a little bit more.
Yeah. And so apparently he's moved on to another like octave of the universe, but he might come back because.
Another octave.
Yeah. Or dimension or whatever, because I believe that he left the Emerald Tablets just prior to leaving. So maybe he left then and then he came back.
Dude, and so there's people that go so deep into studying the Emerald Tablets and the Book of the Dead and the Kybalion and blah, 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 so much. And it's so interesting. It's so intricate. I mean, cultures invested their entire culture into it, like sacrificing the harvests and virgins and war and gold and all of this for just to hold on to this wisdom that probably came from Atlantis, that probably came from even times before that. Mm-hmm. And, and how are people applying this stuff? Maybe they're attaining some states of liberation in their own consciousness, but the measurement being the interaction between people and your interaction with people. And we could say success. I think Michael Singer's a hella successful spiritual man because he sold $1 billion company that he made from scratch while practicing surrendering and meditating, and, figured it out and has a system about it. And I'm like, that's spirituality, not the spirituality that makes a person stay dirty and dirt broke their whole life and mm-hmm. feels all blissful or whatever. I mean, do something with it. Show me. So phase shifts through the land or something, if you're going to be poor, or, demonstrate how you can have such incredible relationships and an ability to influence, calibrate one's communication. Because it's not just the women. It's how he does with guys. It's how we do when we go out, when there's celebrities, where there's football players, where there's, owners of restaurants and whatever, and bars and things, people that have a lot of value outside of relationships. Take away the relationships and there's moderate amount of value here. He gets good income or whatever. It all goes to the women, so you would know it. But it's okay. In Silicon Valley, it wouldn't be that impressive. It would just be pretty good. But there's this application of understanding mentality, of polarity, of gender, of rhythm, of correspondence, cause and effect, and vibration. And I don't know if I missed one, but that is. It's not just idle chit chat. It's not just idle talk. It's the actual application of those things, those principles from Thoth that there's a lot of people that can recite the 7 laws, but what are they doing with it? Maybe a thing here or there. They're doing a thing here or there, but it's this is a guy that's world-class. This is the Michael Phelps or the Michael Jordan. And it's funny how they're both Michael, or this is the Donald Trump or the Genghis Khan of this, of this art. This is the world-class top of the planet. And he's saying 7 Hermetic Principles, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think that's super cool. That's super inspiring. That makes me want to read the Emerald Tablets and see if I can get an edge on him somehow, because I read something he didn't or whatever.
Yeah. I think he knows all these things from past lives or something. I know he's read them all, but I feel like he was just born knowing them.
I think we all kind of do. I
Yes.
think there's a covering over, the language has covered over the knowledge of truth and the perception of truth. So it's all here to be recognized, but our language is throwing us off. And I think that's where I was kind of trying to go with the story earlier about language as a veil, because by interacting with all these poles that are pulling him, these relationships, and finding his center and holding that center while they then constellate around him, and he sees and observes the patterns of confusion that takes over a person, these waves, the cycles that people go through, and how their language changes and whatever, combined with all the mathematical language of Scientology, and seeing, just the inaccuracies, the ambiguities, the just so much that's it's hard to really break down.
Absolutely.
But he's definitely brought to life the deeper truths that, like, I think the 7 Hermetic Principles is very hard to argue with them. I mean, they're so general, it's hard to argue them. They're like, yeah, man, they exist.
Yeah.
It's like saying the law of gravity, like, yeah, gravity.
Yeah. But the more I think about them, the more I appreciate them. And just for another example of, giving them the respect that they deserve, Isaac Newton, maybe the greatest scientist of all time, he innovated so much of what nowadays we think of as science, because there was kind of Aristotelian science and stuff that now is a little bit wacky, but really the stuff that Newton came up with is really what we use it constantly, right? He was completely obsessed with Hermeticism, and he wrote they found his personal writings on the subject. He was very into alchemy. And I forget that they said he had written like over 1 million words on it or something like that.
Jesus.
Which is like many books.
Yeah.
So yeah, lifetime student of the subject, and I'm going to continue to look at these 7 Hermetic Principles more, because I just felt like I started to understand AZD on a deeper level, and it's like he's really, that's what he is teaching us within this context of mating, I guess, or being cool. He's almost like the Buddha of being the perfect teenager or something, but being a teenager is no joke. Being a teenager is the human experience, and it's being cool, being popular, being alpha, being the life of the party. You could demean these needs, right, and say, oh, that's immature stuff, but really that's the
stuff of life, man. That's when the man is most vital. I mean, that's when, man would be going to war. Like 17-year-old man is like a war asset. That guy's got a career ahead of him.
Yeah.
And, so full of vigor and yet strong enough to, fight a man. So,
yeah. And so all that, somebody like, or we're still teenagers in that sense. We're still looking to be accepted, to be cool, to be funny, we want to walk into a place and people think, oh, this guy's the shit because of the way we move and the way we dress, and nobody's ever really like, no philosopher or whatever is really given that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Attention.
Yeah, I love this stuff. Because like what you're saying is like, I see that it is like power. Like that's power. It's like the ability to influence, to move people, to hold your ground, and to win over opposition, to, because all of these things in the mental realm, in the conversation, to show up to be the life or become the life of the party, even if it's not that night, but like over time. Nobody knows necessarily all the details of the process that went into becoming who you became. They just see you in the flash, in the moment when they see you. And, so this is like applying that philosophy, applying the Hermeticism. Sick.
Yeah, because so much of it is about awareness, perceiving
exactly.
the dynamics at play and the interplay between all the characters.
And understanding. It's like awareness and understanding. So, yeah. And so,
man. So these, like these the rhythm, right?
Mhm.
When you go into what's the strip club that we always go to in San Jose? What's it called?
The what?
The strip club.
Rhino, Spearmint
You
Rhino.
know, when we go into Rhino,
Yeah,
you see rhythm everywhere. The
totally.
guys sitting are moving, the way the girls up on stage are moving, the way
Mhm.
that everything,
Yeah,
there's a rhythm to it, the music,
totally.
the lights,
Yeah.
so
And
yeah.
he calibrates, we calibrate. I mean, it's tuning to these laws of nature that, man, I mean, I forget what it was like to be a normie and be so caught up in the teachings of life that the normies had given, and not seeing the deeper waves of life, this deeper being able to perceive it. I mean, it's not like I didn't feel or experience those things, but totally just crazy conceptions about things, and that weren't based on fundamental principles of even human interaction. The 7 Hermetic Principles could easily become the fundamental principles of human communication and interaction. It'd be easy to find that in the rhythm of how you all interact day to day. The mindset, of course, you bring to the interaction, how you think about the other person is going to be like how the vibration of that comes out of you is going to be related to how you're thinking about the person. And good communication, the rhythm back and forth, and the gender roles. And it'd be very easy to go through and those become very fundamental. And I think that's what's happened here. And so we're all going to come up with a lot of truths as we align to the fundamental principles. We'll come up with our own truths and discoveries from our own context of life. And that's a very exciting thing in our mastermind, and talking and sharing like this.
Yeah, totally. And so
Sounds kind of gay when I say that, though, but it's sharing within the tribe. Remember, I'm not interviewing anybody outside of IMC Nation, so fuck everybody outside of IMC Nation. They're stupid.
yeah, and so they're like this idea of a pendulum swinging is an image that comes up a lot in these principles. And I was wondering today, so here I am at home in Mexico, but I stay in touch with some girls in Colombia. One of them I don't give much attention, and we're kind of done, but it was her birthday the other day, so I did wish her. And then another one I stay in touch with, and it's like, why am I staying in touch with this one and interacting? She sends me photos, and the other one used to, but we don't really talk now. And it's like, why do I stay in touch with her? But I got sick of her, and I think it's because the one that I kind of got sick of, she was so into me and giving me so much attention, whereas the other one was always more like, when we're around, we can have sex, and then we'll do our own thing, and we're free. And it's kind of like these kinds of dynamics. I see the Hermetic Principles, where it's like cause and effect, and you know what I mean? That movement, if we show too much interest, she moves away, or if somebody shows too much interest in us, we move away, and then they stop showing interest, and then we become more interested. And these kinds of dynamics in the mating game. Mm-hmm. I see that's kind of how I see the Hermetic Principles.
Yeah, I'm super interested in all that stuff. We'll have to wrap up the show. We'll have to bring you back, but I'm super interested in that. And especially, I start seeing a lot more truth when I have more abundance. So it's difficult to really speak or see truth about the relationships when there's any neediness or, lack of sexual fulfillment. And it's different for men and women. And so, I see that there's so many levels to this thing. It's not even really levels. It's more of a gradient or a gradation scale, meaning it's like continuous. It's not defined levels, but you can kind of see where they are in their evolution. And it's not a fixed thing, because you could have had 3 girlfriends for 3 years and you evolved a lot in that, but then you haven't had a girl for 3 years because that was 3 years ago, and you've devolved a lot. You've gone back down in evolution. The world has evolved past you now. It kept growing. That's one of the benefits of longevity in relationship. You stay in that evolution. And so there's a question. We'll answer one question, this one typed question, but I was just saying all that for some reason about, the push pull. And, where my attention goes, I'm real interested in that, and what abundance brings, what wisdom abundance brings. So last question from Josiah, question for Q&A. Is the Kabbalion, it says in the Kabbalion, it says none of the laws listed can be bypassed or surpassed thoughts. What about the other laws? For example, the law of equivalent exchange.
Was that in the Kabbalion? I don't remember the equivalent exchange in the Kabbalion.
No, the law of equivalent exchange wasn't inside the Kabbalion, but it's something that was talked about in like old lectures.
Arash lectures?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to ask him about it. I mean, I would say whatever I'd say about it is that, yeah, there's, you know, there's something called like momentum. So let's say two objects come together and they hit. They don't necessarily both stop. They could, depending on the mass and velocity of this one, it might continue to go in this direction, or they might knock off in this direction, or they whatever. There's a lot of things. So with cause and effect, like, or exchange is like a cause and effect. Exchange is this goes for that in counter flow of energy. And, but that doesn't mean there's no such thing as a deficit. There are deficits. So this might not be equal to that, in which case there's some sort of vacuum, energetic vacuum that will be filled later. All things will ultimately be equal exchange. It just might not happen in that moment. So, but I can't say on the context of what Arash was saying about it. That's just my thoughts on it. And then,
yeah, like, I don't know, because with the Hermetic Principles, these are, to address your first question, can they be bypassed or surpassed? I don't think they can. I think this is kind of the framework that we're a part of. You know, we're a microcosm of the macrocosm, and we're a product of all that is and all that is not. And these are the principles that govern it, and we're just a part of it. So I don't think they can be bypassed or surpassed. With the law of equivalent exchange, I don't know if that's, you could look at that in two ways. You could look at it like those other things where it's a law of the universe that you cannot avoid, or it can be more of an ethical code of conduct, meaning when a bro hooks you up, the right thing to do is to hook them up, you know, when you can, when it's the right time. Or it could be that maybe you never energetically, you never lose anything. You never gain, or well, I guess you gain, but like there's always some exchange. When you lose something, you're gaining something. You know what I'm saying? That would be like a law of the universe and how it operates. Or it could be like a personal code of conduct.
yeah, there'll always be some exchange. It may be a deficit, it may, you know, but it'll fill, the vacuum will fill. Right on. Cool question. That was real interesting. Honestly, most of the podcasts, I try to keep to 20, 30 minutes. This one a little long, and hopefully the audience likes it. I try to keep it that short because research shows that that's what people have attention span to listen to. So otherwise, I would just talk all day. My goal is really to create something called IMC Radio that would just have a lot of different podcasters on it. But when I made a bunch of offers to IMC Nation guys, I mean, everybody's busy. Nobody wants to post their ideas or whatever. I don't know. This stuff is kind of risky, taboo sometimes, talking like this. And whatever. I don't know why you guys don't do it. There's not dollars at the end of it. I mean, I don't make money to do this. I basically pay money to do this, to post the podcast. So support the show, everybody, by leaving a review and whatever. And sign up also for the Beast Gathering. There's a discount still going on for alien tech. So very related to everything we just talked about, you know, except with the frame of there's a lot of violence and conflict in your communication and how you're talking with people, how you respond. It's just in your attitude and demeanor. Yeah, we could go into it came from parents, or the culture or whatever, but let's just remove it, and removing it by seeing it. And the way that AZD is lecturing this month is from like an alien perspective of human communication, how we interact, how language is this like technology of our mind to transfer ideas and coordinate and cooperate and mate. And there's a lot of conflict in your communication. So this is a recipe and his method. You know, I'm excited. It's only on the second day of the camp, so I can't say much about it. But that's the theme of it, is removing that. And there's a discount going on until 10 a.m. tomorrow. So if you're catching the recording, you missed the discount, you should still sign up. Everybody here, you should sign up. Go to imcbase1.com for that. And Everet Dale, you have a blog also. Would you like to shout it out for everybody?
Yeah, so it's mysteriumacademy.com. Is that self-explanatory how to spell it? I don't know.
Yeah, Mysterium, like with an RIUM at the end, Academy. MysteriumAcademy.com.
Yeah. So there's a lot of content similar to what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
I look at occult stuff, Eastern stuff like chakras, a lot of hermeticism, and I'm just writing more and more. So
Yeah.
it's a project I've had for about a year and a half now.
Hell yeah.
And long term, I see it as being eventually it'll be my passive income that will support my lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
So that's my motivation, but I'm learning so much by writing it.
Of course. Yeah, it's real exciting. We check in about that too, moving forward, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of creation coming up with it.
Yeah.
So thank you, Everett. Thanks to the live audience. It was great having everybody, a bunch of people on today, and even on Instagram and everything. So, leave a review for the show, join the Telegram group so you get the announcements, and we'll see you next time. All right. Os.
Peace.